A very good evening to you. It is the 23rd day of November 2013. I hope your weekend has started off quite well. Many thanks for joining us on our bulletin tonight. We have lots for you, including Job Center this week. You don't want to miss that segment. That's coming on a little later on in our bulletin. But let's start off with the top stories tonight. And it's about what's happening in Turkana. Armed militia believed to be from the Pokot community are holding 3 police camps hostage in Lorokon village in Turkana South District. The District Commissioner Elijah Godo says police reinforcements are en route to Lorokon and Nakwamoru areas to flush out the bandits who are said to have engaged the besieged officers in a fierce fire exchange. The Turkana Governor Josephat Nanok has appealed to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior Joseph Olelenku to take urgent measures to curb the escalating bandit attacks along the West Pokot-Turkana County borders. Patrick Amimo will be bringing you those details in just a short while from now. Let's move on to matters happening at The Hague and discussions over what the word immunity as pertains to the Kenyan appeal continued as the Assembly of State Parties to the Rome Statute met at The Hague. Now this even as it emerges that Kenya has sent documents detailing Kenya's intention to seek an amendment to the Rome Statute that would grant sitting heads of state immunity from prosecution at the International Criminal Court.
Civil society organizations kept up the pressure for Kenya to explain exactly what immunity from prosecution would mean for President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. Kenya has confirmed its intention to seek an amendment to the Rome Statute, granting immunity to sitting heads of state from prosecution by the ICC. On the sidelines of the Assembly of Parties to the ICC conference at The Hague, Kenyan civil society groups expressed concern that immunity could mean that African leaders who had perpetuated injustices could evade justice. Kenyan Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohammed has said that the proposed amendments have been finalized and presented to the United Nations. Kenya would require the support of 81 member states in order to pass the amendments. This state of affairs now sets the stage for the 122 members to either adopt or reject the amendments to the Rome Statute. If adopted, it would grant the president and his deputy a reprieve from prosecution at the Hague-based court. However, even if the amendments were approved, they would come into effect 12 months after the proposals were adopted. President Uhuru Kenyatta's trial is scheduled to start next year in February, while Ruto's trial has been adjourned and is set to reconvene in January after the prosecution was unable to produce the next witness immediately. Wilkiston Yabwa, KTN.
It was a reign of terror for pirates in the last 10 years, but lately piracy seems to have been contained. Now, it could be because a number of the pirates were prosecuted and jailed. Well, in their first television interview, some of these pirates now share their stories with KTN.
For over 10 years, it is not uncommon to witness such scenes along the coast of Somalia on the Indian Ocean. And often cases of ships being seized made headlines both locally and internationally. Statistics by World Bank resource site indicate over 1,000 pirates operate within 4 square kilometers of the Indian Ocean. But the Kenya Defense Forces launched the operation against Al-Shabaab in Somalia, and the capture of the Kismayo port, coupled with endless efforts by the international community to curb terrorism. Thus, hundreds of pirates have been arrested and the captured ships released. Among those serving jail terms is former pirate leader Abdi Kadir Hersi, whose gang seized over 20 ships. Together with his friends Muhammad Abdullahi and Hassan Ali, they have been at a Garissa prison for 5 years. Abdi was a professional pirate. To him, capturing the largest and even armed ships would take not more than 2 hours. But he says it was his family's only survival strategy as he inherited the business from his father.
The way you depend on your pen and paper as a journalist is the way I depend on my gun, and it was not a crime in Somalia.
Abdi was captured in 2009 by the France army during one of his missions. The prison commandant says that most of the pirates are reformed after serving their terms.
Mukirudi huko kwenu Somalia, mturudi hiyo kasi ya pirates tena ama ya kusumbua dunia. ama kazi yenu. Anasema hapana, sisi tukitoka tu kutoka majela hizi ya Kenya, sisi kazi yetu ni kwenda kwa bahari na kufuna samaki.
Mohamed Abdullahi will be set free come January, while Abdikadir Helsi will have to wait 2 more years to walk to freedom. Ian Wafula, KTN.
Efforts by a task force appointed to resolve conflicts over community land may go to waste if a private member's bill by Senate Majority Leader Kithure Kindiki is adopted. Stakeholders in the land sector are suspicious of the bill, which they say may quash recommendations of the task force appointed by former Lands Minister James Orengo. Patrick Amimo has the details.
The Task Force on Formulation of Community Lands handed the draft bill to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Charity Ngilu, Tuesday last week. The task force was appointed last year by then Lands Minister James Orengo with the mandate to collect public views and draft a community land bill, an evictions and resettlement bill. But early this month, Senate Majority Leader Kithure Kindiki published a self-sponsored bill on community land a fortnight before the task force handed its draft bill to Ngilu. Stakeholders in the land sector have questioned Kindiki's intentions.
The reason why bills are published, for example, we've just published a community land bill, it is to allow stakeholders, the public, relevant organs such as the executive to input or make their views known.
You've seen CIC say legislation is done with its input, its work being ignored. So this is yet another step.
The Kindiki bill gives the Public Service Commission power to recruit, vet and appoint a community land registrar and other officers to oversight community land, contrary to the Land Registration Act of 2012.
This one by the task force seeks to create the chief land registrar to delegate an officer who becomes the officer or the registrar registering community land. So there is room for harmony, there is more coordination in the one developed by the task force. This one lacks in the coordination. It creates a parallel system.
All land traditionally or historically used for communal purposes, including sacred or religious sites as kaya forests, fall under community land. The Kindiki bill says county assemblies shall have power to approve, amend or reject recommendations by community land management committees what portions of community land shall be set aside as communal land. The task force draft gives the power to approve or reject such proposals to grassroots community assemblies.
This one talks about county governments dealing with land that is unregistered and transacting in it. This one says the county governments can only hold it in trust. It means they can't transact. When you're a trustee, you can't transact.
I have taken it upon myself to consult the minister, the Cabinet Secretary for Lands. She has informed me about what the task force has been doing. And if there are compelling reasons for us to stay this bill, if there are compelling reasons, we'll be listening. That is the purpose of the public participation framework in the legislature.
The draft bill by the Task Force on Community Land, if passed, will tame community land grabbers who have in the past benefited from illegal and irregular allocations of such land. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Let's take you to Northeastern, where the health facilities there have absolutely no health workers. Those deployed there have refused to take up their positions. The workers say insecurity and harsh weather are just some of the reasons they refuse to work in these areas.
Somebody stay with Bulletin situ for 2 weeks, just in the ward, doing nothing.
Right now we have around 7 facilities which are closed. But we want to make sure those facilities are open and those staffs are available.
Withdrawing the staffs through Capacity Kenya, it will really become now, I can say it is a disaster. It can.
This, unfortunately, is the reality in many health facilities across the country, especially in arid and semi-arid areas. Kenya is currently facing the challenge of inadequate health workers to provide quality health care to its fast-growing population. Besides harsh weather conditions experienced in northern Kenya, the situation is further aggravated by terror threats that mostly target Kenya-Somalia border towns.
We don't have dialysis, we don't have ICU, our diagnostic system service. It is not really what is expected for a provincial hospital.
The region is struggling with many other challenges, including poverty, lack of basic amenities, inaccessibility to proper health services, and severe shortage of medical equipment and personnel.
The facilities are not equipped, for example, with either fans or air conditioning, so this tends to be challenging for healthcare workers.
Generally, we want to improve the retention of our health workers in our facility through hardship, improving the working environment, through other motivations or incentives.
The few students in arid areas who meet the minimum medical course requirement are not able to pay school fees due to high poverty levels.
The students in this place are well interested in health, but they're very much interested, but they don't meet the requirements. The sciences are the biggest problem for them.
Capacity Kenya project through Intra Health International has stepped in to offer financial support to needy medical students from arid regions admitted to the Kenya Medical Training College as an incentive to encourage students to take up health courses with the hope that they will go back to their home areas after graduation to offer them much needed health care.
One time I be in my home area and I help I work one of the facilities and able to assist the community as much as I can.
To try and increase health worker numbers and address the critical gaps, IntraHealth, in partnership with USAID, supports the Ministry of Health with over 800 contract health workers across the country. Garissa County, for example, benefits from 57 health workers, including 15 based at the Garissa Provincial General Hospital.
I was very happy. I didn't have the stress of looking for money. Mine is just to think forward, not even in college, but thinking forward what we'll do after college.
These students have had the opportunity to finish their training, and we are tracking some of them to see in the course of their work whether they are becoming productive.
With the government declaring free maternity services, the need for not only more health workers but also mechanisms to retain them in areas of dire need is critical.
Hundreds of visitors have thronged the resort city of Lamu for the cultural festival. The annual fiesta is now in its 13th straight year, which is no mean feat. But our senior coast reporter Ferdinand Omondi now tells us why business there is not so brisk.
The distinct sound of the Nzumari filters through as traditional dancers entertain visitors on the streets of Lamu. It is that time of the year when hundreds of visitors troop to the beautiful resort town for the annual cultural festival. As always, the sights and sounds are breathtaking. Hotels are speaking of a new lease of life after a difficult early period of the year.
Tulikuwa tamani, tulikuwa katika 20%. Tunashukuru hii culture festival imeboost. Tumekuja mpaka karibu 75%. Sometimes 80%.
80% may sound great, but this is actually a 20% decline in bookings. A few years ago, most hotels would register 100%. At Sunsail Hotel, for example, manager says they would fill all the rooms and even go ahead and lay some guests at the dining hall. Even locals would accommodate some visitors in their houses for a fee. Those numbers today are no more than nostalgic.
Kutoka mwezi wa August, walipiki season nzuri mpaka May au April, lakini baada tu wale terrorist kuwateka nyara wale jamaa wawili hapa Lamu, tumekuta safa sana.
The number of foreign tourists is notably lower even on the streets, which is thronged with local tourists, the natives and their relatives. Generally, the spending power is lower during this period compared to other years, so much so that the pain is felt even in the market.
Wageni hakuna, ndio maana biashara inaenda kirudi chini tu, kwa sababu mimi wakati nilipokuwa naanza biashara ilikuwa iko juu, saa hii kidogo iko chini.
The aching in the pocket, however, takes nothing away from the spectacle of the festival, which has now entered its 13th straight year. The locals showcase what they do best, be it swimming, donkey racing, music or sailing. In fact, the sea transport business is what appears to have been largely unaffected because it is unavoidable.
Means kubwa ya Lamu ni kutumia mashua. Vitu kutoka Mombasa, hata kama zimekuja kwa gari kufika Mokowe, lakini transport zinachukuliwa kwa mashua.
Notable, though, is the diminishing number of dhows which have been affected by a reducing number of expert dhow makers and the emergence of the motorboat. Festival organizers face the inevitable challenge of making the Lamu festival more attractive while keeping the heritage synonymous with Lamu. The annual Lamu Cultural Festival never disappoints in terms of fun and entertainment. However, in terms of business, its fortunes appear to be dwindling, and perhaps it may be time to get a little bit more innovative to inject a new freshness so that it may also make some business sense. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Lamu.
Well, the Lamu Festival is definitely something that should be on your bucket list to at least help the businessmen there see better numbers. Let's take you back to that story. We started off our bulletin with armed militias believed to be from the Pokot community are holding 3 police camps hostage in Lorokon village in Turkana South District. The District Commissioner Elijah Godo says police reinforcements are en route to Lorokon and Nakwamoru areas to flash out the bandits who are said to have engaged the besieged officers in a fierce fire exchange. Turkana Governor Josphat Nanok has appealed to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior Joseph Olelenku to take urgent measures to curb the escalating bandit attacks along the West Pokot-Turkana county borders. Patrick Amimo now brings us the details of what's happening at the Turkana-Pokot border.
Trouble has been brewing along the West Pokot-Turkana county border along River Takwel, where communities from the 2 counties are involved in a border dispute. The Turkana South District Commissioner Elijah Godo confirmed to KTN on telephone that armed bandits had surrounded police camps, but no officers have been injured.
For the last 2 days, there has been fire exchange between the security officers stationed at Lorogon and the Pokot bandits. We were trying to reach the area today in the morning. We were unable to reach because the members of the Pokot community, backed by a bandit, closed the Kenyan gate, and the officers were unable to go through. We were forced to come back to Kainu.
Police reinforcements from the counties of West Pokot and the Paramilitary General Service Unit officers from Eldoret and Kitale are en route to Lokoron and Nakomoru areas of Turkana South to counter the bandits.
The road between Kainu, Takwel Gorge, Lorokon and Nakomoru is closed and has been taken over by bandits.
The governor says more than 900 people, mostly women and children, have been surrounded by the gunmen, calling on the security forces to rescue them. He says humanitarian assistance cannot reach the villagers because the road has been cut off.
To put every effort to bring the insecurity to go. They have a constitutional mandate to make sure that the problem along that boundary is resolved.
There are so many illicit arms in the counties of West Pokot and Turkana. These arms have been used by criminals to engage in castle rustling.
But of course, criminals are there, and some people still live and sneak and buy firearms. I believe now this is an opportunity for us now to move in, to forcefully recover those illegal firearms from those people.
There is need to strengthen cross-border policing in the 2 counties and also deal firmly with the politicians of the 2 communities who interfere with peace-building efforts. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
Now, after the signing of the tripartite agreement 2 weeks ago for the repatriation of refugees and closure of the Dadaab camp in Garissa County, the government, led by the Cabinet Secretary for Internal Affairs Joseph Olelenku, local leaders and a Somali delegation met with the leaders of the 5 refugee camps to announce the start of a repatriation exercise. Winnie Kamau was in Dadaab and now reports.
Local leaders who visited Dadaab, together with Cabinet Secretary of Internal Affairs, had news for the over 400,000 refugees living in the Dadaab camp, the largest in the world. Government will now embark on a voluntary repatriation of refugees back to their countries.
It is not for you to complain. It is for you to seize the opportunity, to say goodbye and begin a new life moving back home.
Your country now needs you. You can go back home, run businesses, teach children in schools where 23 years they have not been taught. You can go and sit in offices and work.
I think that the refugees should not be scared because this is a process. It is a process that will take time.
But this move has not come without resistance from the leaders of the camps, saying that they needed assurance of their own security before they go back home.
Our country is not safe still. There are some parts of the country which is safe. Maybe people from there can go back, but still number of population who are living in Dadaab, their country is not safe.
After the visit round the camp and the hospitals, the government has reassured the refugees the repatriation will be done in the most humane manner.
We believe it is for the good of the people of Somalia. It is for the good of the refugees in Kenya. It is for the good of Kenya. It is even for the good of the county Garissa that have borne the biggest brand of the problem.
Kenya currently has the highest number of refugees in the world and hosting the highest number of Somali refugees, estimated at over 400,000. That is July 2012 was the closure of the Dadaab refugee population verification exercise, which has seen the reduction in the camp population by over 10%. According to UNHCR, this year, 8,058 refugees have received identification cards, bringing to a total of 130,000 refugees having IDs since 2009. With Kenya grappling with insecurity issues, Dadaab, which holds 5 camps, has not been left behind. According to UNHCR, residents have been experiencing some insecurities escapades emanating from the infiltration of firearms. As we go back home, a painful reality is dawning on 5 refugee camps in Dadaab as closure is imminent. Winnie Kamau, KTN.
Let's now take you to our weekly segment, Job Center. And this week, we're taking you to Machakos town, where many young people are eagerly waiting for the new city in order to get job opportunities as promised by their governor, Alfred Mutua. One such person is Dorcas Muya, a 26-year-old who has a diploma in human resource management and has been employed for the last 3 years. Rather, she has been unemployed for the last 3 years. However, Dorcas will not let her lack of jobs stop her from realizing her dreams. She decided to use up her savings to set up a small business.
Job Center paid Dorcas Muya a visit in Machakos County. The 26-year-old decided to open a small business since she was unable to get a job in human resource management. In the heart of Machakos town, Dorcas opens her shop at 7:30 a.m. 2 computers, a printer and a laminating machine complete this makeshift office. So what's this?
This is a table mat.
Dorcas shares this space with a friend who puts some of her merchandise on display. In turn, she chips in for the 7,000 shillings rent every month.
I started taking my CPS. I did CPA 1, CPA 2. Then I got some job as an accounts clerk, Anim Ceramics in Nairobi. After that, the contract was over. I decided that with the little savings I had, I get something to keep me moving. And just because I was computer literate, I had some passion in that, I decided to get a machine and start something small.
For the last 3 years, Dorcas says she has sent her CVs to several offices in Nairobi and in Machakos County, but is yet to receive any positive feedback. In fact, she has lost some considerable amount of money while looking for a job.
I sent CVs through the bureaus. The thing is that they call me for interviews, but at a fee. That's what really puts me off. Yeah.
How much do they charge you for per interview?
2,500.
And is it guaranteed that you get employment?
No, they only place you for interviews.
Dorcas opened up her small computer business in March this year, seeking to make ends meet. And since she was computer literate, she could offer basic computer services such as printing, photocopying, laminating, and typesetting.
I like to get some formal employment in the human resource field since it's in my career.
So you don't like what you're doing right now?
I'm happy. I like it. It gives me some little income. On a good day, I make around 1,000.
Dorcas was worried about how to stay relevant in the current human resource market since she has never practiced in her field of training. Job Center did what we do best. We took her to meet Margaret Irungu, who is a senior HR officer, to help her realize her dream of becoming a human resource practitioner.
My name is Dorcas Moya. I have a diploma in human resource management. I haven't been able to get employment for the past 3 years. I've come for assistance on how to increase my chances of getting a job. And here's my CV.
Okay. I can look at your CV and pinpoint some things that it would be good if you would correct them as you send out your CV. And one of the things is, as an employer is looking through your CV, it needs to be clear on what is your training, because as an employer, the employer wants to see what are you selling to them. How relevant are you?
What companies should I be eyeing that employ HR experts?
HR or human resource management is normally a profession that you can be eyeing every other company, because most companies, even consultants, do have a human resource department. So I would advise you to start first of all with the private companies, because starting there would give you a chance to do either internship or even come in as a management trainee. So whenever you see companies advertising or even just going to make applications, even if the company has not put their advertisements in the paper, you can offer your services as an intern. Then you remain relevant because you will be in the market offering your services, so you will know what is happening in the HR field.
Machakos County is fast growing, and with the governor's plans to transform the county, people like Dorcas are hopeful that new job opportunities will come their way. Najma Ismail, KTN Job Center.
He grew up in Nairobi's Kibera slums, living inside a timber house. He dropped out of school in Form 2 since his parents could not afford the fees. However, he was lucky as his pastor paid for his education. He later became Kenya's first government spokesman, and now has an ambitious dream for his county. Tonight, Najma Ismail brings you Machakos Governor Dr. Alfred Mutua's Big Break.
Alfred Mutua is a very simple man. I grew up a very simple life. I was born in Machakos, but I was brought up mostly in Nairobi. I lived in a timber house until I was 21 years old, using a pit latrine. So I did not grow up with wealth. I mean, we never had a TV in my house until I left for the United States. That's when I had a TV close to where I lived. So we used to go to neighbors to watch television. We had an old radio, tulikuwa tunashikanisha na rubber band. So, people think that you get where you are because of you grew up, in a good life. I grew up tough, but my parents were very supportive and very, very good. At the age of 15, at Form 2, I did not have money for secondary school. And it was an elder, Mr. Hezron Itaka, in the church I went to, who actually paid my school fees up to Form 6. Others would have been a dropout. I got out, did some Jengo, but I went back to school. My first big break happened when I was in Form 5. And when I was in Form 5, I was teaching Sunday school at Riruta Baptist when some missionaries came from the US, and they were amazed because I looked very small and they said this kid is very bright, very small, teaching. So when they went back, they got a scholarship for me and found a school for me to do my degree, because I said I wanted to be a journalist in the media. So I left this country in 1991 and went to the US and spent about 7 years in the US. I did my bachelor's, did my master's, studied a lot, and then I came back to Kenya, where I worked at Nation newspapers, taught at Daystar University as the youngest lecturer at the time, and then I went to Australia to do my doctorate. And after Australia, I got another big break where I went to the United Arab Emirates as an assistant professor of communication, because I was already lecturing in Australia and working in the media as a foreign correspondent. Then another big break came about when one day I got a phone call, and I was told I've been headhunted together with others, whether I could come, whether I could send my CV. I sent my CV to the government of Kenya. After 3 months, I got another phone call. I was told to come down for an interview. So I got a ticket, I came for an interview. I was interviewed, it was a cabinet interview with various ministers. After the interview, I went back to Dubai, and then I got another month and a half or so. I got a call and asked, do you have a fax machine? I was sent a letter saying that I had been the best candidate for the work of the government spokesperson to set up an office and everything. But I couldn't come because I was lecturing. So I came and told them I can't just abandon my students. And they said, it's okay, you finish. So I was given the job, I think 2 or 3 months before I took the job. So that is what, and I served in Kibaki's government for 9 years. It is very, very important that as leaders to make sure that systems are in place to pull our people from the ground and carry out initiatives with speed, so that no child sleeps hungry, no young man dies and walks around with apathy, no young woman is confused about her life because we are poor. People who have education, who are qualified, but Machakos does not have the capacity to absorb them. That is why we are setting up a new city. This new city will get big jobs to be created. We estimate immediately within another 3-4 years, close to 300 directly and indirectly jobs will be provided. Within 6 years, we're looking at 500,000. More jobs will be provided for our people than the number of people looking for work in Machakos County.
The governor of Machakos County, Dr. Alfred Mutua, never misses an opportunity to sell his vision for the county. And of course, he is the envy of many other county residents in others. Let's move on now, still on Job Center. We want to celebrate our employer of the week, who is 31-year-old John Mungai. Now, he is a florist along City Market in Nairobi. And Mungai says he grew up in the flower business as the proceeds educated him and his siblings too. Initially, he had just one employee, but the business now has up to 7 people on casual employment. This number increases according to customer demand. You know, there are occasions such as Valentine's Day when the demand for flowers is much higher. Mungai says they provide flower arrangements for all occasions, including weddings, funerals, and birthdays.
This business has been here for so long because actually initially it was started by my grandfather. He brought our father up in this business of flowers, but that time he used to do local flowers. We never had this kind of export or the flowers that are grown in greenhouses. They were not there before, so they used to grow local flowers, the ones that grow wild, and they used to sell them here. My father came and was brought up also here in this business, and also he brought us up in this business.
Now, if you are a job seeker, or if you are one of those employers, and you see, we celebrate people who are employing 7, 10, not necessarily the big corporates that have hundreds and sometimes thousands of workers. We want to celebrate you. Get in touch with us on Twitter. That's at KTN Job Center. Or you can send us an email, ktnjobcenter@standardmedia.co.ke. Nudge My Smile will get in touch with you, and we could be featuring you next week. And it is some good news now, as KTN marks yet another milestone, and it's all thanks to you, our viewers. Indeed, KTN's Facebook page becomes the first to hit the 1 million follower mark in Kenya.
KTN has hit the 1 million follower mark on Facebook, and it is the first page in the country to do so. The page, which is primarily used to disseminate news, has taken the top spot on social media thanks to the accurate and timely updates it shares.
The accuracy, facts, objectivity, fair comment, and feedback have been given a chance to play clearly on these platforms.
In addition to dispersing news, the page has been instrumental in the integration of audience feedback on our news stories.
The key thing is interactivity. Previously, broadcasts would just go and you have the option of just watching and either accepting or ignoring. But today, feedback. Facebook has made it very easy for the audiences to send feedback, to serve their share on the stories, and also to create content which media houses use.
Social media has revolutionized communication the world over, and news production has not been left behind.
I think social media as a news anchor does come in handy because, one, it gets you into the mind of your prospective viewers, and it also helps you to know what you need to know in order to broaden your stories as a journalist.
The KTN team would like to thank all our Facebook fans for propelling us to hit the 1 million follower mark. We promise to keep you updated in the way that only we can. For KTN, I'm Chelimo Chelagat.
Indeed, keep liking our Facebook page and following us on Twitter for the best updates on news affecting you. Let's move on to our Survivor series this week. Fed up with rising cases of defilement in Wamba, Samburu East, one man decided to take on the fight. The middle-aged businessman was sickened by what he felt was unnecessary delay in seeking justice for the victims. Catherine Omando brings you his story just days before the 16 days of activism against gender violence is set to begin on Monday.
They may be simple hand movements, but they are a sign that Mary is slowly healing from her post-traumatic stress disorder occasioned by her experience 3 years ago.
Tulifika saa 10 nyumbani tukaelezewa na mtoto venye amefanyiwa na wakajua hiyo mtu.
Tulikuwa tunajua naye. Hata alikuwa anakuja kukula chakula kwetu, mara akikula anaenda kwao. Sasa wakati huyo jamaa alikuja hata sisi tulichangaa kuona hiyo maneno ilikuwa inafanyika.
In any traditional society, the judiciary comes second to a council of elders. Like a number of parents whose daughters have been defiled, Mary's parents were offered an out-of-court settlement, and with the high level of poverty in this county, in most cases this form of coercion works.
Hapa wanafichanga. Hapa unaongea kwa kijiji, unalipwa. Mimi basi nilikataa kulipwa. Nikasema hii sio kitendo ya kuongea hapa. Kama mtashika hii mtu nitatafuta juu chini venye hii mtu atashikwa na venye mtoto yangu atasaidika.
This decision to ensure justice for Mary reached its logical conclusion made the family an outcast.
Kwanza nilienda kwa chief. Sasa kuliko chief anisaidie. Akaniambia tunampelekea huyo mtoto. Kumpelekea yeye. Kuliko anainua huyo mtoto kuangalia na kona gari na kona pikipiki. Akakataa.
Pascali heard Mary's story. Unlike most who would shake their heads and move on with life, he took it upon himself to help the family. He would walk from office to office in Wamba until Mary's perpetrator was arrested and jailed mid this year.
So nikisikia tu mtu amenajasiwa, especially mtoto, mimi ninajiamusha tu, ninaenda mpaka police station. Kuna report mmeletwa hapa? Ndio. Mmechukua hatua gani? Kuna amepelekwa hospitali? Mmefanya nini? Vitu kama hivi. Mimi ninajihusisha kivyangu.
Seeking justice for the victims is an uphill task. The most surprising is that in this constituency, getting a P3 form to process an abuse case with the police will cost at least 500 shillings.
Sio rahisi. Kama yule mama tulitoka pale huko anachoma makaa. Ndebe ya makaa ni shilingi 100. Utasanya 100 mara utapatia watoto yako 100 ama utasanya hizo pesa. Kwa hivyo kupata hiyo shilingi 1000 ndio jambo lingine linafunja wazazi moyo kwa sababu wingi wao hawana.
When Pascali hears of such a case, he will use his own money to pay for the form. If he has none, he will seek help elsewhere.
Ni hawa kina mama ndio huwa wananisaidia.
According to the law, a P3 form should be free for any victim of abuse anywhere in Kenya. Authorities know this, however they seem to be a hurdle for such girls.
Wanachanga wanasema ni ujuaji tu ya huyu. Anajua mambo mengi. In fact, honestly wanasema hivi. Wanaume hawako tayari wa Samburu kuhusika na mambo ya unajisi ya wasichana.
Sally's family knows all too well about this kind of chauvinistic bias. She was defiled mid-2013.
Alishikwa the same day, akapelekwa station. Pia mimi nilishuhudia alikuwa ndani. Alikaa station almost 3 days. Nadhani the following day, sasa siku ambayo ilikuwa inafuata ilikuwa apelekwa kotini. Kama sasa ni kesho ilikuwa kotini, akaachiliwa leo. Ni kama walimpea free bond. Kesho yake hakufika kotini. Alipotea hivyo, story ikaenda kwa unavutana.
Because her assailant walks free, Sally was moved from Wamba constituency as Pascali seeks for a way to lock him up. But this is not an isolated case. He is angered by the fact that he is sort of a lone ranger in this quest.
Badala ilete NGO hapa zinakuja kupigana mambo ya maji, zinakuja kupigana mambo ya shule. Kwa nini tusiwe na NGO ya kupigana na tohara na kwa wasichana kuolewa mapema wa Samburu, ili tabia itoke. Tupate mawakili wanawake wa Samburu, wasichana. Ndio wakuja wafanye hii kazi si ya wanaume wasikii uchungu, yule anasikia uchungu ni mama.
Defilement cases require urgency, but for the people in Samburu East, which is the biggest constituency within Samburu County, urgency is not really a matter. The children's officer must come from Maralal, which is in Samburu West, and travel 115 kilometers to Wamba to cater for these children. By this time, parents and children have lost hope.
This 3-hour drive is treacherous, driving across one of the most dangerous counties in Kenya. At most times, the child officer will not make it on time or decide not to go at all.
I'm telling you, it will be a disaster in Samburu East. Kama hii ofisi ya watoto haitaletwa hapa, whereby the officers will exercise their roles.
Despite all this, Pascali does have a success story, that of Lucy, a 7-month-old molested in front of her older sister.
Anasema alikuwa anashika mtoto yao, ndio hiyo mzee akakuja akamnyang'anya mtoto, akaanza kumfanyia hiyo kitendo.
Lucy's sister gave this witness account in court, and the perpetrator is now in jail. Pascali hopes for more successful stories like that of Lucy, but really, he wishes that defilement and rape would end altogether. He has no office, and he is in dire need of finances to help the victims' families with medical bills, but he will not wait for assistance. With whatever he has, he will continue to fight for the rights of young girls in Wamba constituency. Catherine Omwando for the Survivor Series.
Let's now get into sports news now, and tables were turned on match day 4 of the Kenya Cup Rugby as the big boys left their respective match venues with their tails between their legs. This year's Impala Floodlights winners, KCB, together with Mwamba and Homeboys, all lost their matches. Strathmore cemented their position on top of the table after seeing off Mean Machine 33-3. Londis fried winless Mombasa 91-0 in a one-sided affair.
Another twist of the ever unpredictable Kenya Cup Rugby League was witnessed this afternoon. It's turning out to be no one's cup of tea, and the level of competition has no respect for the big boys. Strathmore University took on the University of Nairobi's Mean Machine. The Madaraka-based side went into the match with the last week's 113-0 annihilation of Kisumu FC fresh in their minds, and Charles Somondi's space in the wing was an added advantage for them with quick reaction from Humphrey Ward. It was a painful experience for Mean Machine. The pillars of the one-sided match made sure Strathmore maintained the log lead after a 33-3 win. Other casualties of the day include Mwamba, who travelled to Kakamega and were handed a shocking reception with a 51-13 upset. Homeboys faced Queens, who had only played a match this season, and they were handed a 22-16 beating. Impala proved to be the side to watch as they showed the mighty Lions of KCB how rugby is played. The Bankers were handed an unforgettable 18-0 defeat. Nondis announced the return, beating Mombasa FC 91-0. Defending champions top try Nakuru FC showed their title defense initiative by beating Apora's Kisumu FC side 65-0. Nicholas Mudimba, KTN Sports Today.
They came, they played, they conquered. That is what the South African men's and women's hockey team did as they defended their African hockey titles in Nairobi today. And by winning, the South Africans will fly the African flag during the World Cup finals in the Netherlands next year. Lynn Mashira reports.
The South African hockey title defense highlighted the gap between them and most of the African countries who are mostly said to be financially challenged, citing a need for more support from the World Hockey Union as well as the African body if the level of continental hockey is to improve anytime soon. The final women's match pitting South Africa against Ghana was the first to take the center stage. Elizabeth Opuku scored on the 3rd minute and on the 14th minute to give Ghana a 2-0 lead, but the South African kept on their pressure on the West Africans. South Africa revived their hopes of regaining the match with their first goal 2 minutes after the restart before an own goal on the 55th minute and eventually the winning goal just 1 minute to the game. Despite the unfortunate loss, most of the Ghanaian players said they will take home valuable lessons and also sounded a warning to the African champions in future tournaments.
Well, they feel fine, feel good. We lost gallantly.
Me, I know I have the ability to play. That's why I was chosen. And being a senior team wasn't easy at all because we were many. And I managed to go through. I'm really happy I made it.
This means a massive thing for South African hockey and for the players to be able to get that World Cup ticket.
Buoyed by their female counterparts, the South African men team took to the pitch oozing confidence that earned them a 1-0 lead on the 8th minute through Julian Hikes. The Egyptian side made numerous threats, but none of them bore fruit. South Africa seemed to enjoy support from more than half of the stadium, which grew their thirst for more goals, and they eventually sealed the win on the 67th minute, forcing Egypt to be content with the silver medal.
There's no easy match. International competition, there's always the tough ones. You can't go in there expecting to win.
On their arrival home, the South African teams will regroup and kick off preparations for the Hockey World Cup that will be held at The Hague in Netherlands. Lynn Washira, KTN Sports Today.
Machakos and Mombasa Stadia opened to the public today, signaling their readiness to host the 2013 Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup. Somalia became the first of the 12 Sekafa teams to arrive for the regional tournament that starts on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Cooperative Bank retained their men's basketball league title.
Doping, taxes and investments will be top on the agenda when the second Athletics Kenya Athletes Symposium opens in Eldoret next week on Tuesday. All elite and upcoming athletes have been invited for the seminar, which will culminate with the 4th edition of the AK Gala that takes place on Thursday night in the City of Champions. Doping has dominated the athletics scene as the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, trained its eyes on Kenya and Jamaica over claims that athletes from the two countries could be using banned substances. Officials from KRA, the banking industry and the Ministry of Education are scheduled to engage the athletes on specific topics. Machakos County has joined Nairobi and Mombasa as the latest owner of an international stadium. Kenyatta Stadium in that county officially opened its gates today, signaling their readiness to host the 2013 Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup. The challenge starts on Wednesday with a double header. Zanzibar opens the tournament against Sudan, then hosts Kenya plays Ethiopia, a team that almost qualified for the World Cup in Brazil.
We'll leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much for your feedback. We will see you again tomorrow. And I want to make a special mention to Maresha Awiti, who's the person that you see at the bottom of your screen. That's our sign language interpreter, without whom this bulletin would not be heard by the deaf. We thank you so much, Maresha Awiti, indeed, for always being there with us throughout our bulletins. We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a lovely night.